They said it was clean, too cheap to meter. Built the dome, then cooked the beaker. Said the rod was safe as sealed in drums, but left them leaking out of Idaho slums. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done.
Hello everybody, you're almost ready.
They chase the sun, all fusion proud. Ignore the barrels stacked in clouds. Promise stars in every socket, while curium settled in the market. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Chart is clean, while whales rolled up beside the submarine. Blame the algae, blame the rain, but never trace the gamma chain. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb.
Might as well let it finish it.
Being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Now the rods are rusting, the record spins. Mama warned them, too many sins. Keep your son, keep your lab coat pride, till you fix the waste you tried to hide. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done.
Loving it. I just love that song. It's like so many of James's songs now. It's unbelievable. You can find it over at James Lucid's website. On YouTube it's called Nuclear Exceptionalism. Bloop. I'll get there. Let me put a link in there for you. There we go. Just going to put a link in the chat room. You can go to that site and listen to a whole lot of that kind of music created by James Lucid. That's he's got an actual company. It's called Corium Records. She's legit. Here we go. Strontium Milk is in the building. A bit slow tonight, my apologies. Dana's got the telephone number for the call and is in the chat room, by the way. Are thousands of migrating grey whales emaciated because of Fukushima's radioactive fallout has broken the food chain? It's probably the most important question we have in history right now. By far. Here we go. A bit slow tonight, my apologies. Long day. I was out looking for birds and seabirds today on another 165 kilometers. A lot of it's the coastline, obviously, but also you're going down in these little tiny communities and you're not seeing any birds, any small finches or sparrows or robins or even crows or seagulls. I did find seagulls on the way home when I passed McDonald's. They were there feeding. It was low tide, so I guess that 2 and 2 makes 4. So we're going to cover the story on the big show about the die-offs, the next big die-off show that's almost ready, unfortunately. We just done one, seems like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. This is a terrifying story. Great whale die off fear as starving whales migrate north. That's the craziest headline conceivable. Grey whales die off fear as starving whales migrate north. So I'm reading this story and I'm like, oh crap, now what? And then the first thing I read is thousands of grey whales are now migrating north from Baja California, are in such poor shape. Thousands of the grey whales are in poor shape? Holy shit. Holy shit. So let me just back up this train for 1 second. Because it's probably the most important story in history is right there. This is a defining moment in the history of humanity where everybody is forced to live with reality. On top of the 10 billion snow crab just disappeared. And by the way, that was more than the entire, 4 times the entire catch of the history of the snow crab in Alaska and the Bering Seas. I just want to take you back to this story here. Climate change, like, now, using the word climate change is a garbage can diagnosis. Climate change, you can pull over by the police and they ask you why you speed and just say climate change, and apparently they'll let you go. It's an excuse for everything. 40% is 10,350. The majority of them were emaciated. One primary suspect is food scarcity. Now, the only reason you would say anything like that is because they were emaciated. Not because they're healthy, but because they're emaciated. It's not just them, unfortunately. This is radioactive fallout, 468 hours. This is 19.5 days, covering the entire planet from Fukushima. That's the Norwegian Institute of Research model, or study, I should say. Did a marine heat wave, this is a question, this is an opinion, a conjecture, it's not a fact. Did a heat wave caused 7,000 humpback whales to starve to death? You had all the gray whales, 10,350 starved to death. You got 7,000. This is extra humpback whales on top of a 2016-2019 unusual mortality event. So 10,000, 12,000 of them. Same thing for the North Atlantic right whales, the mink whales, the gray whales. Again, another study, the top left-hand quarter is 20 days of xenon-133. In North America, that was 450,000 atoms per cubic or per square meter underground. Radioactive fallout, actual fallout in North America, Canada, United States. We haven't been really noticing any salmon, and we've been noticing that the bears have been getting skinnier and skinnier and more aggressive. That beach, I'd actually done research on that beach. This is what it's supposed to look like. It's got no, the species to your left are wiped out. It's not just the gray whales. It's all the whales. And it's not just salmon. It's every species that should be in the tidal zones. Same thing with birds. They're showing up. Severe emaciation. The common murres, by the way, they dive 600 feet all day long for a joke. And they feed on anchovies and sardines and krills. Biologists who examine the birds say they appear emaciated. We know they're starving, their stomachs are empty. Now, we've done 6 years of research expeditions based upon documentation showing that we had an extinction event playing out. And I went from Vancouver to British Columbia. to Alaska rather, for 6 years, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean, looking for the species to your left. And we documented the whole coastline year after year because the species to your left disappeared. So the migratory birds would have had lots of food if those species that were there in 2011 were still there, right? That's where they were showing up emaciated. And we're talking about over 1 million of the common murres. At the same time was 1.4 million Cassini auklets in the same place, showed up emaciated on their migratory run. And they eat the microscopic animals, the zooplankton, the phytoplankton. So you had millions of both species at two different spectrums of the food chain showing up emaciated at the same time. Gee, I wonder what that's all about. The plutonium dispersal based on 20 days, based on TEPCO's official numbers, which are, for some reason, don't include reactor 4, don't include reactor 3. Have you seen reactor 3 and 4? The official story is that never happened because they don't want to be blamed for the collapse of the food chain and the extinction event that we're seeing playing out. The 4,000 or 3,500 sea lions, they said died of the bird flu. The picture they're showing is an emaciated, severe, extreme emaciated sea lion. There was 2 pictures in this story. Yeah, 3,487, 3,500. The next picture was, it's very hard to watch, but it's not due to, see how they say it's due to the virus, the avian influenza. The avian influenza kills the animal apparently within 3 or 4 days. It's never been known to jump the species after millions of generations. It's never done that. Now, if their immune system was compromised by severe radiation sickness, which is what we've seen happen, then yeah, the virus theoretically could be the nail in the coffin. But that coffin was coming anyway. Do you got any idea how long it takes an animal that weighs 1,200, 1,600 to 2,000 pounds to get to 100 pounds? A severe emaciation. The radioactive fallout is not up for debate. Okay? This is not up for debate. What I'm showing you is a fact. Like, the media is not pretending they're on top of a building that don't exist because it's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in sunshine. Can we all agree on that? We didn't ban the food in 14 prefectures, half the country, but 55 countries for more than a decade because it's like a banana or a potato chip or walking in sunshine. The buildings really did melt down. The devil wears a pink shirt like his predecessors. They're telling you it's like a banana, potato chip, and walking in sunshine. And okay, let's get back to the original story we started off with. They lost the inventory. Oh no, we got it all filtered. And it's a thumbnail for today. Here we go. So back to the grey whale story. Grey whale die off fear to starving whales migrating north. Okay. Now what's interesting about the story is they were starving when they came south. Now they're headed back north. So they're severe emaciation, I would imagine. Researchers believe, this is an opinion, a conjecture, their poor condition / emaciation, which I'm going to show you, is due to changing feeding conditions. It's a technical way of saying they're starving to the... But look at the scope of this. The whales were already in poor shape last fall when they began their 12,000-mile migration to the breeding and calving ground off the coast of Mexico. The whales we are seeing are extremely emaciated. And they're talking about all of them. They have bulging ribs. It went from 12 inches of blubber to 1 inch of blubber. And these are massive animals. These are massive on a scale most people can't appreciate until you physically stand up alongside of them. They make an elephant look like a puppy. With shoulder blades and vertebrae visible even from shore. and the mothers are likely too unhealthy to birth and feed healthy babies. They're talking about thousands of emaciated gray whales. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about all the whales, thousands of gray whales are in such poor shape, severe emaciation. We're talking about the end of these whales. We're talking about somewhere in the next year or two, we're all going to be faced with a brutal reality that you can't no longer escape. You can't hide this one unless you got a great big nuclear war, I guess. It seems to be in the pipe. We got lots of nuclear news. Fukushima has caused this. Has caused a severe emaciation. And that the mothers are likely too unhealthy to birth and feed the healthy babies. They're not healthy babies on top of that. What a dirty thing to put there. Emaciated mothers don't have healthy babies. What a scumbag to put that there. What an incredible lowlife to put something like that in that equation. What a terrible, terrible. So the radioactive fallout, this model is the French government based on 23 days of radioactive fallout of cesium-137 at 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137, which pulses energy 600 feet every second, by the way, forever, compared to a human experience for 300 years, but it doesn't travel by itself. The biggest byproduct of the radiative fuel rod is the curium isotopes, hence the reason we call a nuclear meltdown curium. And curium isotopes need lead shielding to protect you 20 times thicker than you use for plutonium, which is named after the devil. And so that plume is going to have much more plutonium than the massive amount that that's a French government study. It's not a projection, it's not a model, it's a study based on 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. It's enough to destroy the chromosomes and the DNA of every species, and apparently that's what we're seeing. I've done this backwards, is it? Just bear with me. This is the story that I was blown away by again. Japan's agricultural minister, which is that creature right there, if you've been around here at all, you know who he is, vows to drive down the rice prices. He's in Minamisoma, which was abandoned for 5 years or something, and people should have never, under any circumstances, went back. Koizumi met with rice producers on Sunday in Minamisoma City, which is right by Fukushima nuclear meltdowns, Fukushima Prefecture. I'll show you, I got a map depiction of it. 10 million atoms per kilogram. So the BQ is what they call a Becquerel. The Becquerel is a pulse of energy. It pulses in every direction. So if it's in your body, it's destroying chromosomes and DNA and cells in every direction. They're only talking about cesium. And typically, I think this one is cesium-137. More than likely, it's cesium-137. That's typical. You can't just have cesium-137. It's such a strong single, it's drowning out a lot of the other isotopes, which is true, but it doesn't negate the fact that they don't acknowledge there's other isotopes. So 10,000 atoms a kilogram, possibly 20,000 atoms a kilogram. So at 10 million rather, possibly 20 million per kilogram. So 10 million per kilogram, you got to multiply by 66.6 to get a square meter. It's 666 million atoms per square meter. you're going to have 100 times strontium-90 in that same sample. 100 times. You're going to have uranium, americium, plutonium. You're going to have all the iodines, 131, 132, 133, 129. You're going to have all the isotopes, up to 1,000 different isotopes in that same sample. And they're growing food there. And they're shipping it to your countries. And they haven't stopped doing it. This is just 666 million per square meter. 185, not million, but 185, like the age of a turtle, of certain types of turtles that can live to be close to 200 years of age. 185 would typically be an evacuation zone pre-Fukushima at a nuclear plant. Now they're growing food into it and trying to kill you and your loved ones and your children and your friends and your families. This is what they're doing is on purpose. This is a picture of that community before they moved people back in. They picked up 30 million one-ton bags of topsoil in just Fukushima Prefecture, which was 3% farmers' fields. Mostly were just tilled upside down. They didn't even scratch up the surface. They just flipped it over. The industry is completely out of control. We desperately need the world to fight back. You have to fight back. You're in so much trouble because there's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. This is just a fraction of what happens as your immune system is compromised from this stuff. So you see an explosion. Next time to your hairdresser, ask her or him if they're seeing an explosion in their clients with dementia and or having children with Down syndrome or autism and Alzheimer's. And they're going to say, every one of them that I've asked does the same thing. We were just talking about it. It's crazy how many of our clients we've had for years all of a sudden got dementia and Alzheimer's. Obesity rates are at 74% in the United States, almost 90% in Canada. The most heavily hit radioactive fallout zones. Obesity rates double in Japan in the first year, which is a marker for radioactive brain damage. If you know of your any friends who gained a lot of weight in the last 10 years, or just right out of the blue in the last 10 years, you can typically trace it back to this. Mysterious black substance has 1 million plus atoms a kilogram all over Minamisoma. There's a lot of documentary that community should have been abandoned for 1 million years. Okay, back. Met with the race producers in sunny Minamisoma, nuclear wasteland itself. Minamisoma, well, this is Fudabar and Okuma is right here where my fingers toe. Nami's just 4 kilometers away from the Fukushima plant. Minamisoma is right there. It's the worst possible case scenario. In 2012, the city was divided into 3 zones. In the first, people were free to go in and out, but not allowed to stay overnight. 2012, they were letting people go in there into a nuclear wasteland, which is some of the sickest, most demented thing you could do to somebody. In the second, access was limited to short visits, and in the third area, all entry was forbidden because of elevated radiation levels. This is catastrophic radioactive fallout contamination. You can't breathe the air in this environment. This is the reactors, by the way, are still melting down. This is why you're seeing all the whales emaciated, all the birds emaciated. That was not expected to go down within 5 years after the accident. We're not expected to go down within 5 years. Look, the radiation lasts forever, millions of years. How can it go down? This industry is full of nothing but sick and twisted and demented and sadistic monsters. Letting people go back into a nuclear wasteland cannot be justified. This is Wikipedia. July the 12th, 2016, the evacuation order was lifted for all areas of the city except the western border region with Nami. Just so what? Because a bunch of monsters removed the evacuation orders, does that mean it's safe? You can't quantify it. The people that done it didn't have any kind of degrees or knowledge of nuclear whatsoever. These were local government administration sadistic creatures. In August of the same year, 2016, elementary school, high school, junior high schools, which have been closed since 2011, were allowed to reopen. In Koizumi City, which is even further, the radiation in that community is staggering. That was the unclear study. They downplayed. Every house there's 90,000 buildings is entitled to be decontaminated. You can't decontaminate anything from radiation. And their version of decontamination is spraying it with a power washer as if it's a dirty car or something. Is the most ludicrous, monstrous assertion conceivable. Minamisoma, by the way, had 16 public elementary schools, 6 public junior high schools operated by the government. That's the worst spot you can send your kids. And 4 public high schools operated by the Prefecture Board of Education. It's like giving your child a lobotomy. Japan's agricultural minister vows to drive down the rice prices. So the cheapest rice is going to be from a nuclear wasteland. And what do you think people are going to buy? Because rice right now, they're having a hard time keeping it going. If the rice shows up, it sells it right away. What do you think is going to happen? Let me put it into perspective for you how crazy this actually is. If that's even possible anymore, because this was the cancer center in Japan. And I released the statistics once, which was the first year. After that, it didn't release it publicly anymore. Japan's National Cancer Center says the number of patients rose by 865,000 extra cancer patients in the first year. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody was diagnosed, by the way. It's not just cancer. Cancer is just one of the many, many illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses that will manifest from radiation poisoning. Rice paddies reflect late afternoon sun in Fukushima Prefecture city, which is another nuclear wasteland. Just let me come back up here. Oh yeah, I've done that. I've seen it just now, so it should still be right there. Here we go. Average disposition density of cesium-137, as if nothing else is going to fall out from a nuclear meltdown. That's Fukushima City right here, that line. That's the story we're about to talk about. 229,000 atoms of cesium-137 per square meter, and there's 300,000 people live in that city. And I mentioned Koizumi City. Which would be in this one, I guess. Yeah, Koizumi City, 341,000 people, with 162,000 counts per minute. This is shocking. All of these communities have been abandoned. There's many, many more. The list is alphabetically. So all these communities have been left to rot. So don't be surprised with the story I've already showed you, because this industry is your enemy in every sense of that word. Pretty, eh? It's pretty innocent looking, isn't it? If you were a tourist, unsuspecting tourist, and you were there, you were taking that picture, and then now it was almost dark, and you're going to get some supper. Are you not going to eat the rice? That's the crazy stuff about the story, is you can't smell it or see it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or perceive it. 165 kilometers a day, never found a single migratory bird. I'm in the migratory capital of the planet for seabirds. This is where 46 million people, 46 million seabirds, migratory seabirds, show up and raise their fledglings. So when they leave here, you're talking about 100 million seabirds leaving, or more, depending on how many fledglings or chicklets they have, right? And the cliffs that they live on are typically for a million generations have been stained with the excrement, the white excrement. You can see it from miles away. Now there's no stains post Fukushima. But I have to go out there same as I've done in British Columbia coastline. I'm in the Atlantic. I done the British Columbia coastline for 6 years to see if the species recovered, if they returned. So I still have to do the same. We know they're not coming back because this is where they done millions. They raised millions of generations of fledglings. And it's not just all the gray whales are going to show up emaciated. It's all the species, as we've covered over this whole time. I'm just horrified. I was sitting there. I came home and I was burnt out because I couldn't. Like, you're out there looking for the species, and you can't find them. You know you're not going to find them, but you have to go look. That is unbelievably depressing when you come home. It's unbelievably depressing because the world is sleeping on this. And now I show you a story tonight of thousands of emaciated gray whales who are not just emaciated this part of the trip. They've been emaciated since they headed south, and now they're turned around and they're headed north again. They can't survive. Like, to restore 12 inches of blubber is an enormous task. I'm heartbroken. The late afternoon sun sets both sky and rice paddies ablaze in an orange and red light in Kitakata, Fukushima Prefecture. Maja rice grown Tohoku for region. We are fall. Let me see if I can find that. I really have absurd disrespect for the Japanese and for the nuclear industry. Of course, I have nothing but contempt. I've enough contempt for everybody on this planet. The hell? The late afternoon sun sets both sky and rice paddies ablaze in orange and red lights. The basin is ringed by peaks such as Mount Hallelujah. Let me fix that. The late afternoon sun sets both sky and rice paddies ablaze. Let me find a video. I want to show you a video because usually when I want to find a video, I'll never find it, right? Oh, I'll find it if I spend enough time at it, I suppose, but let me try another routine. Maybe I'll find it here. I got lucky. This is TEPCO's spokesperson. So he's going to pretend. He's going to claim that Reactor 4 isn't destroyed and that they fixed it. Maybe I got a better picture to help you here. I need another picture to give you some context. These are videos, so they look a little sketchy. Hang on. 15. So see this building? This is a stump of a 19-story, 65-meter, 190-foot building. Now, he's going to tell you that they fixed it.
And Fukushima Daiichi stage, right after the accident.
He's in Washington at a press club media with a bunch of other bootlickers, and he's going to tell the press, which is these people here who was going to come out and tell you the same story. I'll play that video in a minute.
And Fukushima Daiichi stage, right after the accident, it was of course the emergency condition. But right now, gradually became the decommissioning stage, more stable decommissioning stage. And that's that, as I mentioned, the successful completion of the dismantle of the spent fuel from the Unit 4. It's about 1533 bundle from the Unit 4, and we carefully manipulate the machine and successfully removed those fuel to the ground located pool.
So, okay. So here's one of the journalists telling you the same story.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor into a safer location.
Okay, so here's four just of the many media that he was talking to are going to now sell you the same story.
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
So how many people think that they're on top of the building to the left? Sure looks pretty though, eh? In this case, pretty gets you killed. You're not going to die right away, depending. Like if just there was a lot of people died right away in the first couple of years. Holy shit! And what was the name of that city? In Kitakata. Let me see on the map here. Oh yeah, I'll show it to you. I forgot. I meant to show you that earlier. So Kitakata is right here. Fukushima's down here. Koriyama's on your right here. Minamisoma is right there. The story's insane. That's the definition of insanity. Grown food in a nuclear wasteland is not very clever. gigatons. The best way to get sick is to consume it. You got all of the migratory gray whales showing up emaciated. All of them. And even from the shoreline, everything they're seeing is extremely emaciated. And from the coastline, when you're looking at the whales, they have bulging, you can see the bulging ribs with shoulder blades and vertebrae visible even from the shore. It's really just horrific. Mother with calves are nearly non-existent. The mothers are likely too unhealthy to birth and feed. They're saying healthy babies. Emaciated mothers don't have healthy babies. Not from all the stuff we've covered over all these years. Risk remains to Czech's nuclear deal signed on Lee's inauguration day, which is the new president of South Korea. Look at this place, surrounded by farms as far as you can see. Total accident that every nuclear plant on the planet, except for a couple, are surrounded by farms. The fuel pools, those tall, skinny, white and red stacks you see, they're hemorrhaging the fuel pools. From the fuel pools, the emissions. The fuel pools are full of reactor cores that are still splitting atoms. Nuclear power is having a renaissance. Here's what consultants say about the industry's future, Business Insider. And what did it show you? Nuclear plants surrounded by farms. There is no, the only thing that's having a renaissance is solar. Last year, solar was 660 gigawatts. It's almost double the capacity of nuclear worldwide in 12 months. Like worldwide, we need around 4,800 gigawatts of energy. That's what gas, oil, and coal is. Last year, in just 12 months, we created 660 gigawatts of solar alone. And there's many different storage applications. Here's another story. This is a new nuclear would be too late and too costly. What did it show you? The new Sizewell C plant surrounded by farms. Quite a coincidence, isn't it? Would be almost entirely cut off by climate-driven storm surge floodwater once a year by the time it's built. Even a degenerate intergovernmental panel on climate change, these are scum of the earth, by the way, reported that renewables are now 10 times more efficient than new nuclear at CO2 mitigation. Without CO2, you can't have farms, or insects, or birds, or puppies, or mammals, or animals. You can't challenge every law in each story and then do a show. You can't do it. You won't get through many stories. In 2 hours is gone. 2 hours is a hell of a long time for anybody. The new nuclear renaissance on which you report may well turn out to be like the last frail one due to a set of inconvenienced truths. Inconvenienced truths. Why would you look at nuclear when you have geothermal anyway? If I try to challenge every law, then every other sentence I got to challenge it. With new nuclear virtually nowhere, this is a good story, you might as well cover it all. New nuclear builds should vastly overcost over time. Large reactors on offer are the same ones offered 25 years ago. There is no nuclear renaissance. There is no new designs have been developed this century. We're still running on the same designs from the 40s that were the concepts. That's the only ones. Same thing for fusion. Not that we built anything, not that we're going to. We have geothermal right at your fingertips, and everybody just refuses it, even refuses to talk about it, let alone acknowledge it. Because, like, whenever somebody talks about reactors, the instant reaction for anybody in the comment section that's participating should be to throw out the geothermal. I remember there was this one debate going on about It was probably 6, 7 years ago or something. And I decided to join the conversation on a newspaper article. And I said, well, why not put your windmills? He said, windmills are garbage, and the only thing we can use is nuclear. I said, well, put your windmills on the mountains where the wind blows all the time. And they attacked me, saying that's the stupidest idea we ever heard. You can't build windmills on top of mountains. It's too cold. It's too windy. You ever heard tell of airplanes? They got the bearings worked out a long time ago. They just literally just buried my comment over and over and over with foolishness. It was really something pathetic. Industry forecasts must be treated with skepticism, and waste and proliferation sitting problems are all deeply unresolved. Since all small modular reactors are in the design stage, industry forecasts must be treated with skepticism. It's worse than that. The Canadian are going to build a small modular reactor. Only problem is it's 240 feet. It's going to be 12 stories underground. Have you ever been to a 12-story apartment building underground before? Neither have I. You got any idea how stupid that idea is, by the way? It's still 12 stories above ground. They're going to call it a small modular reactor. It's bigger than Fukushima's massive reactors by 50 feet, by 5 stories. And the United States is going to be using the same design for their small modular reactor. These are not small. These are not modular. And they're not realistic either. For the same price, you can build a large reactor and have 3 times the energy. Not that I want to see that. But for the time it's going to take, because they've never built one before, they never tested, they don't know if it's going to go nuts or anything else. Everything is speculative. They don't have a full application into the regulatory agency. The list is very long with the negatives of the absurdness when we have geothermal at our fingertips. Why are we wasting our precious time and resources on something that doesn't even exist when we have solutions? Why is this industry so intent on scuttling everybody's future? Could it be they were predicting all the gray whales on the migratory route? They knew last year, right, when they were heading south, that they were emaciated. We were covering it, by the way. But they took that into account. So they knew when they were headed north, they would start showing up everywhere emaciated. And so they want to get ahead of it. They're insane. They've stole everybody's future and everybody's health. And everybody's just, because they can't perceive nuclear, is going to let them get away with it. Like, it's okay to disagree with me, but you got to have a debate about it. You can't just attack me. You can't just go calling me names, and you can't just disregard me. When I bring all the documentation to the tables, when I don't hide from anybody, I put my phone number out there for every show. I put my name out there in every show. My face is always right there. It's undeniable who I am. My research is undeniable too. And I'm the only one that's doing it. How come? It's a terrible time to be alive, to see our planet destroyed by chicken X and scumbags and censorship. New nuclear is limited operational need, a poor business case, even the couple of 100 hours per year of low wind and low sun, a couple of 100 hours. Like, when it comes to windmills, if you stretch your windmills for 500 miles in different communities, the wind's always blowing somewhere. It's never going to be a doldrum for the whole stretch of where your windmills, but instead they put them in the worst places. They put them in a community where they're very obnoxious, and they do a poor job of building them, so they break down and they stress everybody out in order to discourage people from being able, and they don't use storage for solar. There's absurd solutions, awesome solutions for storage, like lava rocks. You can go to Iceland and get all the lava rocks you need for the entire planet, and there's many other places too. Japan is loaded with this stuff. This will store 700-degree temperatures for months. Well, I'm sorry, 3,000-degree Fahrenheit temperatures for months. Lava rocks will. You can do the same thing with sand. It'll store the energy for weeks and weeks and weeks. These are solutions that we know how to utilize, that are available everywhere to everybody. And the technology is already developed. There's off-the-shelf hardware for everything. It is possible to sustain a reliable power system by expanding renewable energy. Like, we have the evidence now that it's not only possible, it's being done in many places. Using electricity far more efficiently, smart energy management, deployment of today's cost-effective storage technology. Cost-effective is not the word. Like sand and lava rocks. There's other ways. You can dig mine shafts, which is stupid simple because of the technology we now have. And because you can buy the big borers, they just drill big mine shafts, and you use compressed air, store compressed air down there from renewables. But you can actually buy those big, massive windmills, and all they do is compress air. It's incredible, stupid, simple, mindless storage. But I love the idea of lava rocks and sand and salt and stuff like that, which we have in abundance. There's also water batteries where you create two aquifers, and then you fill them both up, and water comes down when you need it and gets pumped up when you got extra energy. And that way you're not destroying the marine life, right? Even small communities can take advantage of, and any community can build geothermal and these systems. Any community. And it'll pay for itself over 5 or 10 years. And then electricity can drop down to manageable for households prices, and still have tons of money left over to expand and maintain the system and pay a small handful of employees and engineers and mechanics that you need. Instead of $100 million a year at the nuclear, each nuclear plant spends $100 million a year on maintenance. It's absurd. It's idiotic on top of that. Because when you take the fuel out of the reactor, put it in the pool, you're going to poison everything within 1,000 square miles. Not maybe, but for sure. And they have a horrific legacy of building nuclear power plants in prime farmland, because they can't contain the radioactive fallout. So might as well poison you. It's up. The whole story is absurd. It's a genocidal, omnicidal, even worse, omnicidal industry. And now we're seeing it show up. It's not just all the gray whales showing up emaciated on the migratory routes. All of them showing up emaciated. All of them. Severe emaciation, not just now, but the whole legacy post-Fukushima. And we've been documenting it and covering it. And of course, you look at the censorship of me, 15 people on my show. Really, this is not an interesting subject at all, is it? Horrific censorship. So I'm going to have to do something drastic here in the next month or so. We can't help the world be a better place. We got to find out, too, who's censoring us, and we got to hold them accountable. Right now, they feel like they're invisible, but they have they left a digital trail of everything they're doing. We need to maneuver into a position where we can extract that and be able to call these people out and litigate them. It turns out the Sizewell C new nuclear station would be almost entirely cut off. Well, all the glaciers are melting post-Fukushima. The acceleration for all the supercell storms, all the floods, all the massive forest fires are post-Fukushima. The mass die-off of the species is post-Fukushima. The mass emaciation of entire species is post-Fukushima. The radioactive fallout from Fukushima is not hard to quantify. According to the UK government global data, it takes up to 17 years to build just one nuclear station. 17 years? Well, every 2 years you can build the equivalent in geothermal with no adverse side effects. Very low maintenance. You don't have to bring in 1,000 people extra people every 14 months to do 12,000 maintenance jobs. Which is the most nuclear is about the fuel cycle so they can get weapons to terrorize us with and force us to liquidate our country's assets to keep the industry afloat. Ultimately, the nuclear industry has to consume everybody and everything on the planet. How come I only have 15 people on my show? How come? How come I only have 15 likes? Almost an hour into my show I've been doing for over a decade, 5 days a week. How come? How come when I'm 100% honest 100% of the time, provides absurd amount of documentation for any of my assertions, which I fail to see in any other medias out there? How many other people are out there doing 4 to 5 month research expeditions for 6 years, for instance, on the ocean when they're coming home each year, documenting, which is unassailable documentation. How can I only have 15 people on my show? How can I not have a working motor on my boat for research? How can I not be able to fund my operation that is probably the most important, unfortunately the most important story in history? How is that possible? How can I be ostracized from everybody and everything? How can anybody who's doing it to me look anybody in the fucking eye? How does that work? Am I a bad person for doing this work? Am I a terrible person for being honest? Because that's what it feels like. I must be a terrible person, am I? I know I've only been at this 23 years. Clearly that doesn't warrant me any big foundation standing alongside of me. What kind of stupid friggin' planet is this anyway? What kind of madness is this? All the migratory gray whales are emaciated. 15 people, bless your hearts. The chosen ones. I'm ashamed of this planet. I'm particularly ashamed of the nuclear industry. That they could be so evil, and so many of them. There's so many of them. They all work together to destroy me, and you, and everybody else. Grey whale die off fear. The starving whales migrate north. Are in such poor condition. The whales we're seeing are extremely emaciated. They're the lowest ever, and it means the majority of them are already dead. They have bulging ribs with shoulder blades and vertebrae visible from the shore. It's just horrific. The mothers are too unhealthy to birth and feed healthy babies. I guess what they might be saying is that they can't have healthy babies. They can't birth. They're so emaciated they can't even have babies. And if they did, they couldn't feed. They couldn't be healthy babies, and they couldn't feed them if they did. When they began with their 12,000-mile migration to breeding, they were already in poor shape, severe emaciation. So now they're showing up all over the coastline. It's not just the gray whales. And gray whales, of course, are huge whales. They're massive whales. Let me bring that up, maybe. I try to do the best things I can do every day for this planet, every single day. I put in gray whale and it gave me a pearl. Jesus. Why would it give me a pearl as the top search when I put in a gray whale? Because soon you won't. A gray whale was something that it'll be like the dinosaur in another couple of years. Gray whales once lived on Earth. They were magnificent animals. They lived between 55 and 70 years. They weighed 90,000 pounds. 90,000 pounds. Like I say, they make an elephant look like a puppy. 90,000 pounds. And they're showing up emaciated everywhere they are. And Wikipedia, of course, is disgusting. Feeding. They basically feed on microscopic and small ghost shrimp. It scoops up sediment from the seafloor and filters it, right? Very tiny animals. 16 people, 16 likes. Wow. We're killing it today. There you go. I might fix my little issue here. There we go. I think I did. I use it because I know a lot of people use tablatures, might even use phones, depending if they're on the go and they're trying to kill a bit of time. They might be watching some of the show. The whales were already in poor shape last fall when they began their 12,000-mile migration to breeding. Like, that don't blow your mind. What does? All the whales, gray whales in this particular story, are emaciated. At least 80 gray whales died this year in Baja protected lagoons. They've never seen any die before. Everything's emaciated. It's just the way it is. Thousands of whales that are migrating, which is all of them, are in poor shape. I can't get over it. The whales we are seeing are extremely emaciated. Bulging ribs with shoulder blades and vertebrae visible even from the shore. It's really just horrifying. Mothers with calves are nearly non-existent. She's not liking what she's seeing. Since 1979, they've been tracking these animals. Japan law comes into force to extend nuclear plant lifespans. You kill the planet, and now you want to produce more of this stuff. Because most of the geothermal, and Japan's got amazing geothermal, but most of it's just for the baths and that, right, for tourists and stuff. So they would rather have that than actual, and use that rather than come up with a solution like geothermal. They can drill, right? And they can use material that's earthquake resistant, right, that can flex. The world's fourth largest economy is targeting carbon neutrality by 2050. Again, right, they always conflate, they always put them together as if nuclear is somehow carbon neutrality, carbon neutral. Does anybody really think you can power 1 million homes and businesses without using any resources? It's so absurd, you know, because every nuclear power plant needs 2 gas, oil, and coal plants. Two gas, oil, and coal plants. Nuclear reactors were taken offline after the meltdown at the Fukushima #1 plant. The government now meltdowns. It's like it doesn't even get a whole sentence, part of a sentence, as if it means nothing. Do you really think they picked up 30 million one-ton bags of topsoil radioactive fallout because it doesn't mean nothing? Like, the whole story is crazy because officially that never happened. They made that disappear. Nope, never happened. Officially, this is the International Atomic Energy Agency on top of that. Officially, this never happened. Reactor 3 and Reactor 4 never blew up and caught fire and blew up and blew up and caught fire. None of that happened. Officially. Well, why would you want to... Why is it so important to hide it? The whole story is insane. It's the definition of insanity. And you've got... At the top of each of these buildings were 9 reactors. 1 in the reactor core and 8 in the fuel pools. And journalists have cut your throat. Fukushima is like eating a banana, walking in the sunshine, flying on an airplane. And so for the first 2 years after Fukushima, every story done that. And I came out and screamed in frustration at every one of them. To the point after about 2 years, they stopped using those words ever since. Rare, very, very rare to hear anybody saying bananas and sunshine and airplanes. It's still happening randomly. But it's very rare when it was the normal. Every story was full of that narratives. At the top of the buildings were 8 reactor cores and 2 fuel pools. You're talking about 36 reactor cores.
And if, in terms of what we know about the capacity, about how many fuel rods would likely be inside that reactor, what sort of quantity are we talking about radioactivity?
I've heard different numbers ranging from 2 to 15 reactor cores worth. No, 2 to about 8 reactor cores worth.
So if it can't be controlled, that's worst case scenario, 8 reactors worth of radioactivity.
Right.
And it would be released into the atmosphere.
Radioactivity. By the way, the fact that this has happened at unit number 4 is understandable and is consistent with the theory that it really did dry out. Because the fuel from the unit number 4 was most recently discharged, and therefore was the hottest, and therefore the water would have boiled off more rapidly.
So 8 reactor cores in the fuel pools is an underestimate because they don't have a repository. And they have decades of reactor cores. That's where they store them, is in these deep pools. They boil off enormous amounts each day into an environment up to tall, skinny stacks. The reason they boil them off is because they're still splitting atoms. And so those atoms are released into your environment. So every year there's more and more produced in the fuel pools. So it's more radioactive fallout coming out of the fuel pools every single day. You got 1,000 fuel pools. We're talking about a catastrophic assault upon the entire planet of every species. There's nothing on the planet has an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. Even the giant whales are showing up severe emaciation. All the species, not just the gray whales, but in particular the gray whales. This means, for example, that one reactor in the Fukushima Prefecture, suspended 12 years after Fukushima, will now be able to operate until 2047, 72 years. The reason that they had a 30-year charter, originally before they started becoming corporate personhoods, was because of the neutron bombardments hurts the integrity of the material, the steel, the cement. And these are high pressure reactors, so they're at 1,000 pounds to 2,000 pounds per square inch. So all of that stuff is heavily bombarded with neutrons and gamma shines and X-rays and beta rays and gamma shine, alpha, betas, neutrons, gammas, X-rays. It destroys the integrity of the material. And that's why you shouldn't be operating them. You only need one to screw up your entire country. You can cover it up, but you're still poison to everybody and every species. And you set into chain, you set in motion an event that will eventually exterminate all the species. And because people can't perceive it, it's very difficult to learn this topic on your own. It's easy to go out and find all kinds of propaganda. And so when you first find that propaganda, you say, well, Dana's full of shit. You keep looking, you'll find the same propaganda everywhere you go. When you finally let me have a say and analyze what I'm telling you and showing you, if you're still denying realities because you're an idiot, don't feel bad. The planet's full of them. I'm talking to anybody new. That's my detractors. Know exactly everything I'm saying is true. And that's their job, is to come out and destroy me. They're really good at their job, by the way. Like their parents, no doubt, and their parents. But operators require approval from the country's nuclear safety watchdog. The countries for the exemption. The nuclear safety watchdog is different every administration. The administration appoints them, and only they can make it illegal to poison you with radiation. Your politicians don't have the authority to make it illegal for some reason, some mysterious, bizarre reason. Only the regulatory agencies in your country, and then if they did make it illegal to poison you with radiation, the next administration would just rescind that, right? The legal revision is also aimed at helping Japan better cope with power crunches after Russia's invasion of Ukraine sparked energy market turmoil. No, the market turmoil was caused by all the NATO and United Nations countries that have been captured by UN, right, the military-industrial complex, which is 195 countries, forego the commodities, the gas, the oil, the coal, the precious resources from Russia, and had nowhere else they can replace it from. And so this caused instant inflation worldwide. I'd done a video on day one of the war saying, hey, guess what they're up to? And unfortunately, I was right. You can go back and watch the video, and you'll see I provide you with the documentation saying, hey, guess what they're up to? They're refusing to take the commodity. Canada, United States won't take the gas, oil, and coal, and they can't get it somewhere else. What do you think is going to happen to your country that's dependent upon the gas, oil, and coal? This was orchestrated by them. Like Angela Merkel at the time, the German government, Justin Trudeau at the time, the Canadian, United States. These people had all been World Economic Forum young global leaders when they were young. They participated. They all grew up to be leaders of your country at the same time, and they all done the same dirty thing which the World Economic Forum was saying should happen. It's quite a coincidence, isn't it? How many times has Klaus Schwab been right about his predictions? For at least 30 years. Every one of his, and who goes there? All the global leaders, people that are going to be chosen to be prime minister, presidents of countries worldwide. This is evil on a whole different scale, and there's no need of it. It's not just for greed, it's just done out of too much, because they have too much power. They have no one challenging them. The planet is kept distracted from all the reality. How many people knows what I showed you tonight, that all the grey whales on their migratory route are emaciated? How many people besides us know that? Did you talk to? Have that conversation. Just don't let it go no further. Just say to them, your friends and families and your co-workers, over the next couple of weeks, when you get if the opportunity arises, say, did you know all the grey whales on their migratory route have been emaciated? They got the rib cages sticking out of their bodies, peanut heads, their spines are sticking out. Damnedest thing, I never heard nothing like it. They probably say, huh? Sorry, man, I wasn't listening. And you can tell it to them 5 times, they still won't hear you. They're caught up in so many distractions. Japan is the world's 5th largest emitter of carbon, which is more insects, more fish, more birds, more humans, more puppies. Do you get it? With carbon, first off, wherever it lands, it turns into humans and plants and animals and insects. Is great. But the only plume that covers the entire planet is anthropogenic man-made radioactive fallout, and man-made anthropogenic radioactive fallout is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison on the atomic scale. It's in your body, pulsing energy, wrecking your chromosomes, your DNA, and your cell. Carbon doesn't do none of this. It pulses energy in your body, everywhere, and outside your body, outside your house, through your house, wrecking your chromosomes and your DNA and your cells. Gas on coal doesn't have, emissions don't have those attributes. So they got me dial in tonight, do they? Big time. I got 15 viewers. Holy shit. They hate me. Are thousands of migrating grey whales emaciated because Fukushima radioactive fallout broke the food chain? Everything we talk about happened post-Fukushima. All the die-offs, the extinction events, the melting of all the glaciers, the supercell storms, the massive forest fires. The reason you get the forest fires is because the radioactive fallout, we're talking about so much of, and I showed you a ton of that earlier, it killed the bacteria and the fungus, among everything else. But once you kill the bacteria and the fungus in your forests and in your meadows and everything, that's the basis of the biota, the ecosystem itself. And the biota is all the little tiny microscopic animals. And that part of the food chain, or the biota, is what breaks down the foliage and the litter and everything from the forests and the meadows. Right? And that also soaks up water. It needs water to work. And so water is readily sucked up into the ground because of this biota and this cycle that helps break down the foliage and the litter, see? And so we killed that off with radioactive fallout over 80 years, but we had a pulse event known as Fukushima. And what happens now is the foliage and the litter doesn't break down in your forest. That's not natural. That cycle's been there for millions and millions of eons. Now we don't have that cycle. So when the rain hits the ground, it runs off. It can't soak into the ground anymore. And when you get lightning strikes, and this is why you're having all these flash floods, by the way, because the water just runs off. So we predicted that back within a couple of years of Fukushima, that we would see this explosion because this was stuff we knew from Chernobyl. And then the same thing with the forest fires. When you have forest fires, lightning strikes, which is normal. When it hits these places, haven't seen any water for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. You have big fires, and what happens is the foliage in the litter, which shouldn't exist, which is tinder dry. It doesn't soak up water because there's no biota there. And now you have these big chunks of foliage and litter in the forest wafering up and traveling 1,000 feet and settling down again. And so you have instant forest fires popping up everywhere. You have to physically put it out yourself, so it'll go until rainy season or something. But the rain again causes these massive forest floods, flash floods. And now the earth sucks up heat. It doesn't suck. It's not perspiring the morning dew per se as much as it's supposed to, because it's not sucking up the water anymore. And that morning dew was a very important thing because that kept plants healthy during droughts, right? And so then the glaciers are missing post Fukushima, as we showed for the Rocky Mountains in particular. Right, they were there in 2011, 2012. They started 13, but 2014, 2015, there was less and less glaciers. 5,000 years to replace that. But that water would keep the levels of the rivers and the streams and the estuaries, and the temperatures would regulate it during summers and during droughts in particular. And so all the species in that ecosystem are very important. They're keystone species, right? And the water heats up to a temperature where they can't survive. That for millions of generations they've never seen that. That's the awful, awful legacy of radioactive fallout. And Japan was a massive pulse event. Japan was a massive pulse event. So this is just 23 days of cesium-137 covering the entire planet, according to the French government. It's an actual study. It's not a projection. It's not a model. It's a study. Ford government opened public clean energy fund to support nuclear power. So the clean energy fund here, that's Canada. Canada 2 years ago closed 750 or 700 wind and solar farms, defunded them. And then there was a $5 billion sitting there for storage for these renewable projects, 700 renewable projects in Ontario, Canada. And they gave that money to a nuclear power plant which built a basic water battery. Why does a nuclear plant need storage? Well, because you've got to get rid of the gas, oil, and coal. If you give them money for storage, then the gig was up. Because nobody would want nuclear once you've seen that work, see? The money was supposed to go to renewables like wind and solar, but they closed all of them down. And now the credits that existed for those companies are going to be given to nuclear because they closed 700 gas, oil, and coal, or wind and solar farms down. Ontario power emissions rise 400% after Ford cancels hundreds of renewable projects. This is 2022. 758 wind and solar farms. 758 wind and solar farms. You can go read that story. It was 2022, 2.5 years ago. IAEA Oppenheimer project boosts cooperations in nuclear energy outreach. That's Oppenheimer's grandson, I think. Oppenheimer wouldn't want nothing to do with nuclear. Once he found out about the radioactive fallout, this is what they kicked him out because he said this is a threat to humanity. Just the production of the material. And so they ostracized him from the industry. They demonized him. They accused him of being a spy. They ran him through Senate, accusing him of being a traitor. Right? It was a derogatory assault upon his reputation and name. Oppenheimer would be the first one to tell you there is no beneficial use of nuclear technology. There is no such thing as a peaceful use, because the radioactive fallout attacks everything with replicating cells and nothing has an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. New consortium launches UK nuclear deterrent network. A new consortium launched a UK nuclear deterrent network. I've been around forever. Nobody gives me even 2 seconds. Oh, it's King College London. These are just degenerates. They control opposition, in other words. Constellation Energy nuclear stocks plummeted after regulators blocked Amazon power deal 2024. Remember that? They said, no, we can't afford to give the energy away. We need it. So now they changed all the rules, and you got to give it to them or they're racist, I suppose. Sprout Physical Trust, which is a Canadian company. Sprout Asset, it's got different names now. It's morphed into many different small companies. Sprout Asset Management. What they'd done a few years ago was they bought the physical uranium-238. And they didn't take possession of it. They just left it where it was. But they owned it and they wouldn't sell it. So now the mining companies had to go back and start producing a lot because they have obligations. They have contracts for uranium for all the nuclear power plants. So they got to hire people. They artificially inflated the stocks by doing that. And so when the miners all went back to work, they raised more money, because now their stocks rose right up. They got all their uranium dirt cheap. And they bought the uranium that was coming out, which was supposed to go to the nuclear power companies because they have contracts for the stuff. But it created an artificial rising of stocks. And so now the unsuspecting investors were tricked and deceived and manipulated into buying the stocks. And the industry stocks for the uranium-238 started climbing, which gave the industry kind of like, oh, well, this industry is shaking, man. It's starting to be a nuclear renaissance. It must be. They're selling all of this stocks and stuff. It's really hot commodity. But it was totally artificially inflated. It was a Ponzi scheme. It's still going strong today. And they're still pushing those stocks that are actually worthless. You get the same gigawatts of nuclear now as you had in the early 90s. Discussed the renewed push for nuclear energy and what's behind it. It was that scam I just told you about, that disgusting scam. Shifting energy sprout. And look, farmland. These are criminals of the worst type too. And apparently it was allowed to happen. And here's the biggest story, or the second biggest story of the night. The most insane story that I think I've ever read. This is the most insane story you're ever going to hear, actually. The United States researcher proposes detonating a massive nuclear bomb under the ocean to save Earth. We're talking about 81 gigatons. I'll put it in perspective for you. 81, not... scientists can sequester 30 years worth of carbon dioxide emissions. So if you take away that, you're going to have a lot less insects and birds and fish and humans and everything, right? So this was, I think this is he came up with the radical idea to save Earth, he says. You got to hear the whole story, bear with me. Andy Haverly has claimed that the move could help solve the escalating threat of climate change through this innovative and large-scale intervention. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I'll explain why. By precisely locating the explosion beneath the seabed, we aim to confine the debris and the radiation. But the amount we're talking about is absurd. The explosion would be well over 1,000 times bigger than the 50-ton Tsar Bomba test conducted in 1961, which was equal to 3,800 plus Hiroshima bombs going off at the same time, 15 kiloton bombs. 3,800. Hiroshima. Nagasaki was 21 kiloton. Hiroshima was 15 kilotons. So that would be equal, because you're saying it's about 1,000 times. Well, when you're up to that scale, let's call it 1,086. So that's 4,126,000 Hiroshima bombs going off at one time. Let that sink in for a second. 4,100,000 rather. Nagasaki bombs. 4.126 million Nagasaki bombs going off at one time. Like if you broke everything down to a Nagasaki bomb that we set on the planet, you're looking at 38,000 Nagasaki bombs. He wants to set off a bomb at 4.1 million Nagasaki bombs, or Hiroshima bombs rather, going off at one time. And which was a uranium bomb, so I can't realistically use it because he's talking about a hydrogen bomb, right? So plutonium bomb and tritium, 3H. It's the most insane story conceivable. Let's keep going here. The little boy atomic bomb in Hiroshima was 15 kilotons, just for context for you. That's what I'm using for the numbers. He doesn't have a background in climate science, nuclear engineering. He got the idea from Christopher Nolan's Academy Award-winning movie on Oppenheimer, which was a total scam. So, he was published. This is a journal. I'm actually a member of this journal. Nuclear explosion for large-scale carbon sequestration. By precisely locating the explosion beneath the seabed, we aim to confine the debris and the radiation. How are you going to contain, like, all nuclear deep, like, he's not going to be able to match the depth of the nuclear bombs that were done on land. And everything that was done on land cracked the earth open. So what's the odds that 4.1 million Hiroshima bombs going off at one time is going to crack open the ocean floor? Now you got a lot of pressure, right? You got a lot of pressure above you. The ocean is, you're talking about an enormous amount of pressure per square inch on the ocean floor at these depths they're talking about. We propose burying the device beneath the Southern Ocean, 3 to 5 kilometers into the basalt-rich seafloor, 68 kilometers below the water's surface. And so there's approximately 800 atmospheres of pressure to absorb the energy. This is an enormous amount of pressure because you got to multiply it by 14.6, which is 11,680 pounds per square inch. Is 800 atmospheric pressures. Because his remote can be timed favorably with the weather. There's little to no expected loss of life from the immediate radiation effect. And the long-term effects of global radiation will impact humans and will cause loss of life. But this just increases global radiation. It's just a drop in the bucket, he says. Because every year we emit more radiation from coal plants. Which is absurd to suggest. There's 1,000 fuel pools, and they're all splitting atoms into the environment each day. And that's, you'll see it in the right conditions as a fog or a mist coming from the plant. It'll look like that. It'll look like steam. It's going up tall, skinny stacks, which is 120,000 liters in each fuel pool. There's 1,000 fuel pools. And each liter is man-made radiation, not natural like cold, which is harmless. Everything's acclimated to it through genetic superior selection already. But actual man-made radioactive fallout from 1,000 fuel pools. You can't conflate the two of them. They're completely different. And the amount from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide, we don't need to have a nuclear accidents or nuclear wars to eventually kill every species on the planet. You just need a fuel pools hemorrhaging radiation all day, because the fuel is splitting atoms and there's no containment. You can't contain it. So americium, plutonium, strontium, uranium, plutonium, curium, etc., 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 1,000 times over, are hemorrhaging from every fuel pool every day. It's the most important subject in history, bar nothing. And history will look back on this and acknowledge that. And suggest that every year we emit more natural than man-made radiation is a coward thing to do. And this was peer-reviewed, maybe. But the journals that published this should have caught that. You can't conflate man-made with natural stuff. They're like man-made is pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. And in the case of cesium-137, it's 600 feet every second. There's no natural stuff on the planet that has even a remote characteristics of that. We have already detonated over 2,000 nuclear devices. Well, one of those was the Hiroshima bomb. Another one was the Tsar Bomba, which was equal to 3,800. And so lumping them as 2,000 when you should divide them into megatons, kilotons, because you're talking about gigatons, and you end up with around 38,000 Nagasaki or Hiroshima-sized bombs total. He's talking about detonating 4.1 million of the Hiroshima bombs. There's no way the ocean floor is going to contain it. There's just no way. And these kind of numbers you're talking about theoretically would split the moon in two. This is not a joke. And then his science is based upon no science when it comes to the effects. He's conflating natural stuff with man-made stuff. Adding one more bomb should have minimal impact on the world. Adding one more bomb, which is equal to 4.1 million atomic Hiroshima bombs going off at the one time, and then calling that one more, so 2,001 bombs. This is fucking madness to even say something like that. He should never ever be allowed to publish another paper. He should lose his degree for writing that story. It's an abomination. Adding one more bomb should have minimal impact on the world. Try wrapping your mind around that statement, eh? 1,000 times bigger than the 50 megaton Tsar bomb, which was equal to 3,800 Hiroshima bombs, 15 kiloton bombs. But this one is 4.1 million. You can't. You got to divide it by kilotons to get a number that somebody can wrap their fucking head around. I apologize to the 15 people that are watching my show. Sometimes I get a little too real for people, do I? You know, I apologize because I'm passionate. I'm vehemently passionate about you having a future and your loved ones having a future, okay? I apologize for fucking giving a shit. There's nothing I can do about it. That's who I am. I was made to do these things, to do the research, and I'm 100% honest 100% of the times, which is fucking torture. It's a terrible way to live. It's so bad. I've been at this for so long, I can't even lie to myself, which sucks. In so many ways, you have no idea. And I'm not young anymore, and I'm not healthy anymore, and I'm not. I still got the passion. I still got the courage. I still got the fortitude. And I still got Dana. I'm still Dana. I still got what it takes to do the job. Let's put it that way. I'm Dana. That's who Dana is. He's the guy who got the ability to do the job. I should have 24 people working for me. I should have a huge foundation pumping me out there and fighting for humanity and the species. Instead, I got 16 wonderful people on my show, amazing people that found me. 16 important people, except for the pro-nuclear that are probably there. Everybody else, it sure hurts for having the courage and the fortitude to hear me out. So 4.1 million bombs. Like, and the world's stupid enough to let him do that. It's only another bomb, Dana. Yeah, but it's only equal to another bomb. Adding one more bomb should have minimal impact on the world, Dana. You fear-mongering. Yeah, but it's equal to 4.1 million Hiroshima bombs. Hang on. Let me find a picture. Maybe that'll help you. Sometimes, man. I gotta do everything twice on my computer. So hang on a second. Well, it's not. Well, it is a computer, I guess, but it's an operating system. The hell, man! Let me type everything. Oh. Let me do it again. Almost there. It's gonna make me fight for it. All right, we'll get it this time. If you're lucky. Come on. Don't do me like that, dog. I got a whole bunch, but that's Nagasaki. Hiroshima. Can't keep up with it. I just checked for pictures here. There we go. I think we're on the right path. People survived after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And there was a journalist, journalist who immediately went there with his camera. And there's only 5 real pictures remaining. Most of them were burnt by the occupier. And one of the things he said when he went there, he felt guilty because he was taking pictures of groups. People were formed in groups and their skin was burnt off. But there was outside the zone, people were found squat down they had dropped their pants and they were squat down. They excreted their organs. Their organs melted from the radiation. And some of them were found right in that position. Others had fell over, right, and died. But there was a lot of people found like that. There was a lot. I've done presentations, anniversary stories, where I do nothing but academic studies to try to give you context. Because officially, according to the Japanese government and the Canadian and American studies, nobody died from radiation. Everybody died from blast, or they weren't in the blast zone clearly, because people were blown 600, 700, 800 feet into the air, and their horses and pets and that, and their kids and just thousands of people were blown 500, 600, 700 feet straight up into the air, and They were mostly would have died before they started falling back down to the earth, but those that didn't died when he hit Earth, I guess. And so there's a lot of... So the Japanese government for 70 years refused to acknowledge the victims breathed in enough radiation to make them sick. But they couldn't explain these incredible health illnesses. And they built the cities back on the nuclear bomb craters, which we've never done anywhere else on the planet. And so the victims, which were complacent and brutalized, traumatized, were encouraged to move back in there, or even forced. They found the plutonium in the glaciers here in Canada on top of that shortly. Within 1 year, they were found in all the glaciers worldwide. Adding one more bomb should have minimal impact on the world. It's just, how the hell did we ever get to this point where that can be an academic study published in a respected journal? And be careful when you say respected journal, because Elsevier, Springer, and Wiley, the three biggest publishers, have 22, or let's just say 20,000 journals between the three of them. So the universities produced a study. They give it to Elsevier, Springer, and Wiley's, one of their 20,000 journals. They publish it, and now it's officially published, and everybody celebrates. But if their loved ones wants to read it, it's behind a paywall. And a lot of times you got to have $50,000 just to peruse the indexes to see what's in the journal. You have to pay $50,000. So you produce 4.3 million academic studies each year. You give it away to a handful of the biggest journals. They put it behind a paywall. And then the universities will pay the journals, like Harvard pays $6 million a year. And they'll get access to something like 12, 14,000 journals. And that's the journals that the students are taught with. The students don't have access to the 4.3 million each year or the 40 plus million every decade. They're beyond a paywall. Corporations and entities. A lot of these studies are by public relation firms, right? To manipulate and mold, social engineer a country or society into accepting policies that are lethal but are sugar-coated in these types of studies, like this one here. Saying, oh, what's one more extra nuclear bomb, when it's a 4.1 million bombs going off at one time, and then suggesting it shouldn't exist. So, hopefully it's just a prank, but for some reason I don't think it is. Choosing the barren seafloor can mitigate the ecosystem destruction. The radioactive fallout will pollute the troposphere from an explosion like that. It's not going to be contained, okay? Still be uninhabitable for decades? Really? Where's the radiation going to go in 2 decades? You really think it's going to disappear in a couple of decades? The damage will be contained almost entirely to 12 square kilometers around the detonation site. How's that going to work? Like the Tsar Bomba blew windows out 700 kilometers away. Multiply that by 1,000. Even if it's underwater, it's still going to eject it into the atmosphere at enormous speeds on top of that. Climate change progression, again, this narrative, right? First, it would be clear to everyone that the purpose of the explosion is to sequester carbon, which less carbon is less people, less trees, less plants, less insects. That's how it works. Let me play something. Let me see if I can find something for you to help. One more try. Hang on. What percentage of our atmosphere is CO2? So what percentage of our atmosphere? I might have to boost this audio, so give me a second. I might have to restart it if it's not going to be loud enough on your end, because it's already max. I'm going to crank it back. What percentage of your atmosphere is CO2?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let me change. I got other controls.
Panelists.
Okay, that'll work. Okay, so I'm going to duck out. I'm going to shut up. I got 2 videos I'm going to play to really bring the point home about CO2. This is I believe he was a farmer, and he was brought in for testimony to Congress. So he asks the panel in charge of climate change, and CO2, how much CO2 is in the atmosphere. And they're all going to give you a number. None of them knows, even though they're in charge. You'll figure it out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Panelists, let me just go right down the line real fast. What percent of our atmosphere is CO2? Take your best guess. You don't have to be accurate. All down the line.
Repeat that question.
What percent of our atmosphere is CO2, carbon dioxide? Wild guess. It's okay.
I'll bite 5%.
5?
I'll just follow you then.
We'll go 7. That's my favorite number.
I'll see their 5 and suggest that we know that transportation causes 49% of CO2, so that's why we're all working on energy transition.
All right. So what number do you think it is?
5.
5? How about you? I didn't hear you, Mr. Dreher.
7.
7. Did you have one, Mr. Boyd?
So we got a 5, 7.
This Price is Right.
8. I'm going to get the high end.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I don't mean to put you on ice. I ask a lot of people that because all we hear is climate change, CO2, CO2. I heard a couple of you on the panel saying you're looking to change your vehicles to electric, even though we don't have the electric grid. And me as a farmer, I wouldn't be real happy about running out and replacing $300,000, $500,000, $1 million pieces of equipment because someone wants it to be electric. The answer is 0.04%. Not 1%, not a half of a percent. It's 0.04%, and it's gone up from 0.03 over the last couple decades. This is what we're being all contorted into doing, is this tiny change in CO2. If we get below 0.02, plant life starts dying off.
So if they explode that bomb, plants will die off. But 0.04, not 0.4 even, which is still nothing, but 0.04. Okay, I got one more video of a 5th grade biology experiment. A 5th grade biology experiment. And it's crappy music. So maybe I'll play some other music. Just bear with me.
Yo, who this weak ass I think he is? Tokyo what? Chicago who? Nah, you ain't built for this smoke, fam. You trying to flex on dance? To catch these bars? Think you got the juice? You finna get fried?
Yo, you talking reckless, but you ain't got no pull. Tokyo Bureau? Man, that's cap straight bull. Olympics in Shottown? Nah, you tweaking. Out here gassing up, you just Tokyo leaking. Catching L's while you spitting that week. Dan has been in the trenches while you flow like a geek. Tokyo Rose wanna be, man, that's dead. You talk big game, but you never left your bed. Bureau in the windy city, miss me with that noise. Your whole operation state, you just a decoy. Out here barking, but you got no bite. Dan has been fighting while you duck from the light. Real ones know you just a ghost in the mist. Claiming you a boss, but you ain't on the list.
So you stopped it in a pillow fight. Acting wild, ain't nobody buying what you selling. You playing, but you ain't even in the game.
Dan has been on the block, you just a keyboard thug. Talking that talk,
So the plant to the right with more parts per million of CO2.
No bite, you ain't built for nothing. Street codes you don't know to have. Claiming you a boss.
Right, so time lapse 14 days. Which plant is grown the best? The one with the most carbon or the one with the least carbon? So incredible difference with more carbon. So more plants, there's more food for animals and insects, right? And humans. Holy shit, I got 16 people on my show now. Greatest day of my life this year. 16 people. So the species are being deprived of oxygen just like you are. Day 42, we're almost finished. So here's the significance. It's a absurd significance with more carbon. This was a 5th grade study. Students. So what should we have, more carbon or less carbon? You know the answer, right? That's let me turn that down. How are we doing on time here? We're almost up. Time is almost up, eh? Well, let's finish up the story. So look at all the people that participated. Or that's these references, rather. I'm sorry. For detonating 4.1 million Hiroshima bombs. So when you look at all the bombs, in kilotons is, kilotons. Okay, 540,849 kilotons officially. So if we use Hiroshima, which was a 15 kiloton, and divide it, we get, I forget the math on this because I've done this a few days back. Oh yeah, so this is, it was 36,000 kilotons, 36,000 Hiroshima bombs. If we divide it into his number, what he wants to detonate is equal to detonating all previous nuclear bombs at the one time, 114 times all the bombs we've ever detonated at the one time. That's what he wants to do. That's what 4.1 million Hiroshima bombs is. It's 114 times all the bombs we've ever detonated. And he's saying, well, it's just another bomb. What's the big deal? How many welders does it take to build a nuclear sub? 5,000 more than the United Kingdom has. Actually, they need 10,000. They're nutty industry. It's a nutty industry, isn't it? A good 4 years to learn your trade. And so Babcock will open a new apprentice welding school in Bristol with the first cohort of 30 trainee welders coming through over 2 years. And so they need 5,000 or 10,000. I've never done the whole story for you. Which at 30 every 2 years, 333 years, you'll have enough welders at that rate. They're also using robot welders to speed up production. Robot welders. They're still not going to save them, though. These are special jobs, right? Everything has to be triple inspected. 3 different companies have to inspect everything to make sure, so you got to catch the flaws at that pressure. Why is every nuclear power plant they show is surrounded by farms, I wonder? Why are all the gray whales emaciated on the migratory run? Because Fukushima broke the food chain. So they show you that picture, but when I look up the picture of it, this is the picture I found. They always show you these weird pictures, eh? When you look the other direction, doink. I skipped past the head. Did I even show the headline of that story? I must have missed the headline for that story. Is that it there? That's the end of the story. Oh, it must be right here. That must be it there. No. Yeah, I missed the headline for that particular story. It's there in my description. It's there in my description. Well, I guess there's a lot of reasons to censor this video tonight. There's an awful lot going on in this show tonight. Holy shit. It's a great show, actually. If I was watching this show, I'd be like, fuck, that's a pretty good show, man. Not bad. I enjoyed that. It is not possible to assess the area while operating at full power. Oh, they had a leak at this power plant. Because I make a lot of shows and we don't do them. And so this show was from last week, I think, but I never got around to it. Yeah, we don't cover all my material. You can't cover, like, if I took the 24-hour news cycle and I challenged every lie in every story in 24 hours, I could do it, but the show's going to be 10, 12, 14 hours long. Right? And a lot of times you're going to have to stop every sentence and then bring up information to show they lied. But anyway, that nuclear power plant has a high pressure leak. And I can't remember. I got the names there for you, but I got to look it back up to tell you the rest of the story. Is that Spain? Yeah, it's in Spain. It's not possible to assess the area while operating at full power because it's a high pressure system is leaking, which means it's it doesn't endanger the staff, the nearby town, or the surrounding environment. The fuel pools do, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're hemorrhaging radiation. All the fuel is still splitting atoms. There's no containment anymore. Once you put it in a pool, now that's a death sentence for millions of people within 1,000 square kilometers. Once the plant has gone into what is known as a hot standby, a thorough visual inspection can be conducted to understand the cause of the issue. You shut that thing down then. Well, you can't quantify because they don't know what's going on, so you can't say that there's no danger to the staff, the town, or the surrounding environment because you don't fucking know. You haven't seen it. You don't know what's going on. And it's not unusual for these stuff to lose their integrity. Spain is urged to abandon plans to ditch the nuclear power by 2035. So if they're writing stories like that, then it's pretty reasonable to suggest that they're going to downplay the loss of coolant that they're experiencing, right? Google announces a massive partnership that could unleash limitless underground energy source from geothermal. It is our ambition, Google announces, that we shift the massive potential of geothermal from the abstract into the high-impact reality. Whoever does it is going to be disgustingly wealthy. But you're going to, most of your projects, unless you're like Google, where you got a lot of money because you don't pay taxes, that you can throw around, like, and we're talking a lot. Google Cloud, you know, when you donate in the comment section, the super chat, half the money or more goes to Google. Sometimes 60% of the money goes to Google. So the guy you donated or girl you donated to only gets 40 cents on a dollar, 45 cents on a dollar. That's some scam, man. That's printing fucking money right there. Google Cloud announces massive new partnership could help revolutionize the clean energy industry and bring affordable, non-polluting energy to the entire world. Inner space to drive the adoption of global geothermal energy. Yeah, because it gets scuttled by the nuclear industry. If geothermal, people see geothermal working in their community, it's over for everybody else, right? Gas, oil, coal, particularly nuclear. Why would you even look at nuclear? I got almost double votes as I got viewers. Bless your hearts. Should the oil and gas industry engage in geothermal at scale, it would be transformational for the global economic growth, stability, and prosperity. Should the oil and gas industry engage in geothermal at scale? Should any government, like you're throwing all this money at fusion, all this money at small modular reactors, but none of them exist for 70 years. You've been throwing money at it, but you won't put money into the geothermal. You tell me that's not suspicious? Particularly because it's symmetrical worldwide. You tell me that's not suspicious? It doesn't have a ton of potential. It's so quasi-electric. Quasi-electric's idea was that solution, rather. There's two companies for geothermal you got to think about in order to, you might come up with something even better. So one is quasi-electric, and what they're going to do is they're going to vaporize the rocks, because one of the big problems apparently is you get down 10 kilometers to the super hot temperatures, you eat up the drill bits too quick. So now you got to pull up 10 kilometers to change the drill bit. So it's not like the old pencils where you push on the top and another lead pops out. You got to pull up 10 miles. So that's a problem, absolutely. And what you're trying to do is get down to 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, which is hotter than gas, hotter than oil, hotter than coal. And quasi-electric has a good solution where they can vaporize the rocks. There's another company, and what they're going to do is they're going to use 25,000 pounds pneumatic cutters, so water jets at 25,000 pounds per square inch will slice up the rocks, and then they're going to have a pneumatic hammer that will pulverize the remaining rocks. They're going to pump in water and at the same time suck the water, which is going to contain the pulverized rocks, right? And then behind that will be a drill bit to make it even wider, right? And this will be 6, 8, 10 times quicker than any conventional state-of-the-art drillings. And so now you can get down to 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. It's hotter than gas, it's hotter than coal, it's hotter than oil, and it's 24-hour, completely 100% worldwide. You can tap into it. And so you see the industry put out where geothermal will work, right? And they put it this map, and it won't work here and it won't work there. That's crazy. No matter where you do, if you can drill deep enough, you're going to tap into those energies. But no matter where you do, even if you're only going to drill down 100 feet, you can still extrapolate geothermal energies like air conditioning and heating. You can save dramatic on your light and power by using that, right? It is renewable and produces no plant warming pollution. The only thing that produces plant warming pollution is anthropogenic man-made radiation. It's pulsing energy at the speed of light every second. It never goes away, and you're adding more every day from 1,000 fuel pools at a non-sustainable rate for a habitat, for a biological life-sustaining environment. You're going to annihilate it. Gas, oil, and coal can't hurt anything, the emissions. They don't make plumes that covers the planet. And they don't pulse energy at the speed of light for millions of years. So what's more likely to heat up a planet? Something that's pulsing energy at the speed of light for millions of years, and it's coming from 1,000 sources, anthropogenic man-made sources. And there's nothing on the planet that has an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. There's no species has a mechanism to make it inert, to make it harmless. So what their bodies, all species, will attack, their body attacks the man-made atom, physical atom, with white blood cells from every direction, forever, immediately and forever. And the problem is, it's in your body pulsing energy, or birds or mammals or animals or emaciated gray whales. It's pulsing energy at the speed of light every second. And your body has to repair the damage because it's wrecking chromosomes and DNA in cells and birds and animals and everything else. It's the same thing is happening. So eventually your body builds a sarcophagus around it with white blood cells, and that's known as a tumor. And so cancer epidemic started in the 70s after all the atmospheric and nuclear underground and ocean testing, because you couldn't contain the underground or the ocean emissions. So that's a very important story. It can support our current needs worldwide 140 times over with the technology we already have. Unlike solar and wind, which is excellent for peak power use too, right? Geothermal energy requires considerable upfront investment, but it doesn't. And overhead costs. Well, no, we can talk about powering hundreds of thousands of homes. You're not going to get it for free. Of course, it's going to cost something, but it's nowhere in the shadow of what nuclear is. The shadow of nuclear overwhelms everything else. Nuclear is the most resource intensive. A nuclear plant needs 2 gas oil and coal plants dedicated to it. As facilities to harvest the energy needs to be built and the technology to help is still in development, why would it be still in development? Like the only issue is deep enough. I just explained 2 incredibly promising companies and technology, and you can extrapolate from that the job that needs to be done. Particularly any mechanical engineers or engineering companies could solve that for their own. Like if you can't get 10 miles down, but you can get 6 miles down, you're still enormous temperatures. You can still boil water. I mean, you still drive a turbine, right? That's an important story, so let me put that in the book of holy shit stuff. And speaking of holy shit, it's 10 after midnight where I'm to. 2 hours, 10 minutes in. Might as well wind it down. That was a great story to wind it down, huh? Oh, that was the end of it, because we made a full circle back to that story, which I had to jump down because I didn't move it up front and center like I was supposed to. Holy shit, I got 17 people on my show. How'd that happen? And, here, let me go. Oh, I clicked the wrong one, did I? I need to come down here and try that again. Okay, that works. Okay. It's all fun and games till all the whales show up emaciated on the migratory route, I suppose. That's an awful joke, I know. Thousands of emaciated migratory whales. Holy shit. Holy frig. Are thousands of migrating gray whales emaciated because Fukushima radioactive fallout broke the food chain? Well, what else could it be? It's not just the gray whales, unfortunately. On top, the madness never stops, does it? Whew. All right. Alrighty then. We have silence from James tonight, do we? Hope he's okay. It's unusual. Hope everything's going good. We got no new music, but that's not going to stop us. There's so many great songs. I know all of these are amazing. That song we played it again. That's his last song. Dubstep was pretty good. Kevin Blanchard's. That was really good, actually, right? That was used AI to replace what Kevin was saying. It came out really good. Swearing just as good as Kevin. Small modular reactor voodoo is really good, man. I'm stuck on a lot of bronze whale. All the bronze whales are showing up emaciated. All the killer whales are emaciated. All the humpback whales are emaciated. Nuclear Belgium, I just loved that one. Birdie Pop was crazy cool song. Nuclear Exceptionalism. That's what we started off with, was that song. Hold Me Like a Spent Fuel Rod. Some of these names just wild. That's Nuclear Belgium. There's something about that. It's such a beautiful song. I'm going to play that tonight. I'll put the link in the description for you to the song here in a second. Just give me a minute. I just got to make sure we get the right volume. I'm going to put that in the chat room for you. Any minute here. Hello, everybody. So I just put that in the chat room for you. Right there. You can go listen to it yourself. It won't show after the show. It won't show up for 12 hours. So if you want to hear it, grab it before you click off my page. Just get this up. We'll see everybody on the next one. Have a great night. Hugs for everybody. Take care.
"100 hands, reverse the law. Phase 1 set, now put on pause. They claimed the grid could not endure and fed the myth of power pure. The fuel was buried, not the plan. It only waits for votes to stand. From all they stacked the vessels deep. Tea hands ran long, though did not sleep. No chant was sung, no grave was raised. Just softer lights in western bays. A farmer passed through fields unclaimed. No one asked what wasn't named. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, sold as clean. Ballots cast, the elites decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast. They wrote it down in 23, then turned the page before the plea. The pause they pitched became a door, a lease renewed without a floor. The mask was spun in policy, but no one asked the river's fee. Nuclear Belgium, hear the ground. Not a soul to turn it down. Nuclear Belgium, sold as clean. Ballots cast, the elites decree. Nuclear Belgium, built to last. But the river learns too fast. Now tell the child in Malta today what steams beneath the concrete base. Dessel's drums into me lie, and NATO carries what we weigh. The wind from Flanders bends its back. The scaffold stands, but none look back. Nuclear Belgium.